Having 100% ownership of your startup idea gives you 100% control in what the end product or business service is going to be. Be mindful that the moment you start bringing in investors, third-party advisors, or new stakeholders in the business, that they will have a huge influence in what the end product or business is going to be. And that might cause a bit of a friction. And there's pros and cons to that. But now let's talk about a few examples of successful businesses that actually initially bootstrap their companies. I'll leave a reference link below if you're interested in reading more about the topic. So the first company is GoPro. Its founder funded the business using his own savings and a small loan from his mother. And now GoPro is a multi-billion-dollar business. Its IPO was at $2 billion when it launched. The next company is Shopify. It's a tech company for e-commerce businesses looking to build a quick website to sell their products. They only used under $1 million to keep the company afloat and keep its operations running. If you're not aware by now, Shopify is actually a 20-year-old business. It's been around for about 2 decades. It didn't start back in 2012 when everyone was interested in Amazon FBA and drop shipping, so it didn't randomly rise to stardom. The next company is Wayfair. Its founder Niraj Shah funded the company himself using his own savings. He mentions that it was very important for him to hire the right people, but also have multiple backup plans to make the business a success and a market leader within its sector. And the final example is GitHub. So its founder Tom Preston Werner also self-funded his company GitHub with just a couple of $1,000s. His focus was really on getting people to subscribe and have that initial cash flow and profitability. So hopefully that inspires you to bootstrap funding your own startup. And onto the video. Here are 8 practical ways to accelerate bootstrapping the funding of your startup. Point number 1 is approaching your family and friends. Now this might sound obvious, but your inner circle are very likely the closest ones to you and probably a lot more likely and comfortable to hear your pitch and lend you money. And a great example of this is Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, when he was just starting at Amazon, he approached a lot of the people within his inner circle, including his parents. And if I remember correctly, his parents actually gave him around $245,000. I'll leave a reference link below if you're interested in reading more about the story. And if you're not comfortable borrowing money from your family or friends, you can always incentivize you borrowing money, right? So you can give them equity share, you can give them exclusives of the product as it builds, you can add them to the startup story if it becomes successful, so on and so forth. So you can get creative with how you want to give something in exchange for the money that they lend to you. Point number 2 is government grants. Now this will highly depend in the country that you're in and the type of grants that are available within that country. So here in the UK, there's different grants for different type of business sectors. There's grants for sustained projects involving tech. There's grants for sectors involving improving sustainability. And how you get a grant is by applying for these government grants or independent grant providers. And you usually pitch your business idea to a group of stakeholders, or you pitch your idea to a panel, and assuming that they approve it, you get the grant, and you potentially get mentorship as well from people who have hopefully the credentials to give you advice on getting your business off the ground and making it successful. I would just be very mindful of grants that disguise themselves as essentially business loans, where you get the grant but then you have to pay it back in a certain amount of time period. So always read the fine print. Number 3 is crowdfunding. If you've got a minimum viable product or an MVP or a proof of concept and it already has a high rate of interest, one of the ways you do this is by building up an email list or a lead generation list of people who are interested in the product. You can get that initial cash flow by crowdfunding it. Crowdfunding is a way for future customers or fans of your business idea to make small donations in exchange for the product itself or exclusivity of the product's launch. Once you join a crowdfunding platform, you can set up different tiers for the donations that your future customers can pay out. For example, a small donation could get the customer the product itself, but a higher tier donation can get customers the actual product. They can also get extra freebies, extra goodies. What that could look like is maybe they get a specific serial number on their product, or maybe they can get their name imprinted on the product, and you can get creative with how you want to deploy that concept. But crowdfunding is a really great way to get that initial cash flow if your funding isn't quite sufficient to get the product off the ground. Point number 4 is business incubators, or otherwise known as startup accelerators, or otherwise known as seed accelerators. Startup accelerators are basically fixed term cohort based programs, in essence really an educational educational opportunity. It's a bit of a mixture of an education platform, a networking community, a community of investors and entrepreneurs, with the end goal of really helping you realize your startup idea, get it off the ground for it to become successful. So the great thing about Accelerators is that apart from the opportunity to learn how to build a successful business, you get introduced to a lot of investors. You even get opportunities to pitch to investors depending on the accelerator program you join in. At the very least, if you're not able to get funding from investors, you can hopefully build the right connection or get introduced to someone who can then introduce you to the right person who can help you fund your startup idea. So it's really almost a close-knit community of investors, entrepreneurs, and educators and people who have succeeded in business already. Point number 5 is partnerships. Who said you have to build a startup by yourself? Unless you want to be tight with your startup idea, you want to keep it all to yourself, and you don't want to let go of your equity share, this might not be a great recommendation for you. But if you're open to sharing some of your equity and building a startup with a partner who can complement your experience and complement your skill sets, where you can both learn from each other, and if you do go ahead and bring in a partner, make sure that there's clear role and responsibilities between each of you, make sure that there's trust, and make sure there's a clear agreement beforehand, before it starts to get messy, before you even think about getting investment, growing and scaling the company. You want to have those elements finalized and agreed on prior. And there's loads of examples of successful companies who have done this. An easy one would be Apple, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Another company is Twitter with Evan Williams and Biz Stone. Another company is Ben & Jerry's, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield. There's a lot more to this list. I'll leave a reference link below if you're interested in reading more about it. As mentioned earlier, if you find a partner who can complement your skill set, you're able to create a business that has stronger foundations. Let's say if you're into marketing, you don't want to hire someone in marketing as well, because it's likely you're going to clash. You want to maybe hire someone who's more technical. Vice versa, if you're into product development, maybe you want to find someone who's great at growth marketing, or someone great at sales, or great with partnerships, so on and so forth. Number 6 is pre-launch selling. So this is fairly similar to the idea of crowdfunding. The difference is that before you even start your business idea, you want to validate it first. So what pre-launch selling really is, it's really figuring out a way to prove if you can actually monetize the products that you're ideally wanting to sell as a business. So it's very low risk. You're learning to crawl before you walk, in essence. Another great thing about pre-launch selling is that, assuming that you have 100 to 1,000 people who will want to buy this product, you can actually use it as proof to pitching to government grants, investors, or potential partners, because you've got validated data there showing that people are interested in this product, that they're willing to pay for it. In a way, it proves that your startup idea might actually work. Number 7 is equity-driven payments when you're hiring your initial team. So I see this happen quite a lot in the tech or SaaS space, where a lot of companies or founders will provide their initial hires equity share, or otherwise known as equity incentive, basically giving them a portion of the valuation of where the company is at during that period, and assuming that the company grows, that employees' share value does increase alongside the company. To visualize this, let's say you have a startup idea, you want to build a SaaS company, but you're not a developer and you don't have the technical ability to build the product. You might want to hire a developer, but obviously hiring developers are quite expensive, so having an equity share as an incentive for that initial hire makes the job opportunity a lot more attractive than just a salary focused offer. The great benefit of providing an equity share to an employee is that they feel like they're a part of the company and that they have a stake in the company. The second, which supports point number 1, is that they feel like by having a bit of ownership of the company, they have a bit more ownership in their role, in their responsibility, and their success in making sure that the business is a success, because if they make it a success, they'll get a good return on investment for their time and effort. You can also deploy a hybrid model where you provide your employees a base salary, and that can increase depending on the targets they hit, plus an equity share incentive. So you can get creative with how you want to visualize and extend that offer. This is quite an important concept, especially nowadays where a lot of roles have stale benefits. Having an equity share incentive plus other bonuses hopefully gets you better hires than if you just focused on providing a salary. category. Finally, point number 8 is reaching out to your own network and actually going to physical networking events that are more in the startup or entrepreneurial space. An obvious place for this to be actualized is LinkedIn. I mean, that's the perfect networking platform. It's literally a social media platform for networking with business-minded people. Another way is Googling events or networking events within your area that are related to your startup. If you're in the tech or SaaS space, search for tech networking expos within your area or tech networking events or even startup networking events. In those events, at the very least, you'll be more inspired to realize your startup. And at best, you might meet the right partner or the right person who can then introduce you to the right person who can help you fund your startup. You never know who's lurking around the corner. It's hard to network if you just stay in your room, if you know what I mean. You'd be fairly surprised that a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, are actually secretly entrepreneurial, even though they haven't started anything. In the back of their minds, maybe they're just waiting for the right partner, the right person to come along and build something together. Reach out to people, get to know their wants. Even if they're not entrepreneurs, they might be intrapreneurs. And if you don't know the difference between the two, entrepreneurs are people who start businesses, whereas intrapreneurs are individuals who help build an already established business. So imagine if you're an entrepreneur, you partner up with an intrapreneur. That's a great combination right there. And that's the end of the video. If you have any other ways to help accelerate funding your business, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Until next time, peace and love. Out.